In this video, we are going to be discussing some major updates to the Cody Rhodes, Brandi Rhodes, WWE, AEW stuff. Seems like there's actually more drama than even discussed prior. Also, on top of that, ROH has announced a new match for SuperCard of Honor, and I believe a AEW tag team will be in that match. We're going to talk about that. Also, Brandi Rhodes is reportedly not going to WWE, so we're going to talk about that in this video. If you guys want more videos like this, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring the bell. This way you can get notified of all of the latest content happening right here on youtube.com/AngoYT. So let's actually kick things off with Brandi Rhodes. So there's actually been a lot of talk about Cody Rhodes going to WWE. You may have missed my previous videos where I basically came out with, Cody Rhodes WrestleMania plans, WWE wanting to push Cody as a big deal. Vince McMahon is reportedly very high on Cody. He was able to do some really good things starting up AEW with Tony Khan. Vince McMahon saw that as something that was actually good and something that was unique. So Vince McMahon is actually pretty happy about bringing Cody Rhodes. Apparently, that's what the reports are suggesting. But now reports have come out that Brandi Rhodes is not actually expected to go to WWE either. And this right here actually raised a pretty damn big red flag for me because Brandi Rhodes was the CBO, and I understand that she is obviously the wife of Cody, but whatever issues or whatever really got in the way between Cody and AEW, Brandi shouldn't have been in that same position unless for some reason, well, we're not going to get into that. So here's the thing. Brandi Rhodes is reportedly not going to WWE. There is this belief that Brandi Rhodes is going to focus on being a mother and then some small other businesses and stuff like that, which totally makes sense. I think Brandi Rhodes did a phenomenal job in her role as a CBO for AEW. I'm not talking about her as a wrestler, but I'm talking about building relationships with Culture City, American Heart Association. Things like that were very instrumental for AEW early on, and a lot of that credit goes to Brandi Rhodes. I don't know if Brandi Rhodes, will wrestle again. I don't know if she has plans to do any sort of executive type roles in the future. I don't know if WWE sees an opportunity with her in that regard either, but I think Brandi Rhodes clearly knows what she's doing in that regard. She did a really fantastic job for AEW. So I think Brandi Rhodes not going to WWE. At the end of the day, I wouldn't want to see her on TV as a wrestler. I wouldn't want to see her on TV as a ring announcer. I wouldn't want to see her on TV as Cody's manager or anything like that. But I do think there is a future for Brandi in WWE in that regard of, some of that executive stuff when it comes to like brand deals and partnerships and stuff. I think there could be an opportunity one day. But as of right now, there is no plans for Brandi to go to WWE. So I expect her to pretty much stay out of wrestling at this point. But it's going to be very interesting to see what develops over time. I want to talk about SuperCard of Honor because Ring of Honor has announced that at SuperCard of Honor, the Briscoes will be defending their ROH World Tag Team Championship belts. As you guys know, at ROH Final Battle, we saw FTR show up, and where have they been since? That's the real question, because AEW has not brought in the Briscoes. I think I know why. I think Tony Khan was very adamant about basically telling the world that while he likes them and he respects them, he doesn't really see them joining AEW. And I know a lot of AEW fans will not enjoy this, but I think some of the stuff that ROH, ROH had a really good tag team in the Briscoes. They still do. But the Briscoes said stupid stuff. They will admit this to you. They've said this before. And I think those comments in the past are one of the reasons why AEW is scared to bring them in. And therefore, I don't think we're going to see FTR and the Briscoes in an AEW ring, because I feel like it would have happened by now. And I think Tony Khan as a businessman understands that. But also, I think Tony Khan as a businessman understands that he can send FTR to SuperCard of Honor. And I believe the Briscoes will defend those belts against FTR at SuperCard of Honor. That is my prediction. It is a very, very interesting situation for AEW. Right now, as it stands, they've been signing so many people anyways, and I think the Briscoes realistically joining AEW or WWE doesn't seem likely at this point. Obviously, you never say never, but I think there is a far greater chance of seeing FTR versus the Briscoes at SuperCard of Honor versus the Briscoes signing with AEW. And maybe I'm wrong. There's a very good chance that I'm wrong, but it is very clear at this stage of the game. I feel like if the Briscoes were going to join AEW, it would have happened by now. Also, something really important to mention and acknowledge, FTR could very well go on to SuperCard of Honor. They can win those ROH belts, and maybe AEW does bring in the Briscoes, and at Double or Nothing, we have an ROH Tag Team Championship match, which could very well be possible as well. It would be really odd to see those belts defended on an AEW pay-per-view, but we've seen crazier stuff in wrestling, so I wouldn't be necessarily shocked about that. And guys, our final story I want to touch on, some more drama in regards to Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes. A lot of people have been wondering whether or not this is a work. Look, you can never really know for sure, but I just 1,000% do not believe this is a work. The biggest minds in pro wrestling media have already come out and said this is not a work, this is not a performance, this is not something that is, being exaggerated. There is some real issues there. Now, what's really interesting is on the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer was actually talking about AEW and Cody Rhodes keeping quiet on this. So there's an actual agreement in place. So Dave Meltzer says, I've been in contact with Cody. You, Brian Alvarez, have too. But this is like the basic situation that we haven't talked about this, because I think that Tony and Cody pretty much had an agreement that aside from their public statement, that's the only public stuff that they're going to say. So keep that in mind. There is this belief that Cody and Tony Khan have come to an agreement that they're not going to talk publicly about this relationship. Now, keep in mind, for those who didn't know, post AEW Dynamite, there was videos surfacing of Tony Khan cutting a promo in the ring at Dynamite, pretty much nearly being in tears, talking about how he needs a hug. And then Danhausen and Orange Cassidy and Trent and basically everybody came down and gave him a hug. Tony Khan is probably distraught over this. He is probably bothered by this. This guy, Cody Rhodes, helped AEW get started. And now there's a lot of people who believe that Cody Rhodes is the bad guy. Me personally, I think at the end of the day, business is business. I do think AEW should have kept Cody. I think they should have done whatever that was possible to keep Cody. There was a lot of assets that Cody could bring to AEW. Also, in addition to that, I think for AEW to see WWE sign one of your executive vice presidents, it kind of sets the tone that if WWE takes care of Cody and WWE makes Cody Rhodes a big deal in WWE, and this is all what if, but if WWE presents Cody in the right way, this sets the precedent that if you're an AEW talent, things may not be so bad over there. And I think Cody going to WWE in the long term may actually bring in more AEW talent. So my point that I'm making to all of this is, yes, there is more drama. There is a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes aren't going to make it about that. They have moved on. Tony Khan decided to, again, get lawyers involved, and they have amicably split. And at the end of the day, if Cody shows up in WWE, whether it's next week or WrestleMania 38, regardless of what it is, if Cody Rhodes shows up in WWE, it sets the tone that AEW is not bulletproof. And things are going to happen, and there's going to be drama. And this is a test for AEW to see how well they do post Cody Rhodes. Because things are going to hit the fan. Shit will hit the fan. How do they move on? How do they get better? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time. Peace.